Hello, Mind Over Matter listeners. Welcome to today's show, where we are diving into a deeply heartfelt yet empowering topic: guilt and grief in the role of caregiving. It's a journey filled with overwhelming love, boundless sacrifice, and sometimes unimaginable challenges. And joining us for this incredible conversation is Lynette Weldon, who has turned her 35 plus years of caregiving experience into a mission to empower others. From navigating the complexities of caregiving for a child with special needs to overcoming her own burnout and grief. Listeners, Lynette now shares her wisdom to help caregivers prioritize self care, set boundaries, and rediscover their joy. So get ready to laugh, cry, walk away inspired because this conversation will touch your heart and spark your strength. So, Lynette, welcome to the show. And as always, it's an absolute pleasure having you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really nice to be here again.
Lynette, your caregiving journey began with a tremendous challenge. What inspired you to take these experiences and leverage them for a mission to help other caregivers?
I think it started, when my daughter was born. And I had two boys and I couldn't wait to have a girl. I knew it was going to be a girl. And
Oh,
just what happened to me when, the doctor walked in and told me the issues that my daughter had, and it changed my life on a dime. And I just remember looking at her, this beautiful little baby girl that I was so excited to have, and looking at her and feeling just so overwhelmed, like, oh my God, now what? Now, how do we live life? And remembering that it was just a really sad time for me, along with being happy about having a girl. But there was so many mixed emotions that went into it. And, it just kind of spiraled from there. And just realizing, everything that I had gone through, and knowing that there's so many other people out there going through the same thing, and that life really can be different if we learn how to navigate it different. Um, but as a caregiver in that situation, most often you feel very alone and isolated. And I wanted other people to know that, you're not alone. And there are other people out there that understand how you feel, and that things can get better and you can have a great life.
absolutely, absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. Caregivers, they often struggle with feelings of guilt and grief. It can be very, very daunting to navigate through those emotions. So, how do you
Mhm.
guide your clients through these emotions to help them reclaim their joy?
Well, first of all, like I said, your life changes when you are thrown into the role of a caregiver. And usually it happens suddenly. You either have a child born with a disability, or you have a spouse that maybe has a diagnosis, or has had a stroke or something like that. And so your life changes. And I think it's a very, normal emotion that when things happen like that, there's a grieving process that happens, right?
Yeah.
Your life no longer looks the way you thought it was going to look. And for a lot of caregivers, I think they try to hide that feeling and hide that emotion because they don't think it's okay. They feel guilty that they feel that way because, how dare you be grieving? You still have your spouse, you still have your child, right? And I think that in society, it's okay to grieve a death, but it's not talked about in this situation very often, that there is a grieving process that happens. And so just getting them to recognize that, one, it is okay to feel that way. And if you ignore it, it's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse, and it's going to affect other areas in your life. So I really truly believe that taking the time to feel those emotions and to move through that grieving process is really important. Um, and then, the guilt, that's a whole nother aspect that's
Right.
kind of piled on us. Um, yeah, so there's tons of layers to this, Anna. It's just, there's tons of layers of what happens to these caregivers that I just don't think are talked enough. They're not
Yeah.
talked about enough.
That's really, very, very, I totally agree with you. They have such an important, crucial role to play. And, it's a kind of a battle, a dilemma they
Hmm.
undergo within their heart and their minds. So um, it has to be addressed upon, it has to be talked about. And,
Yeah.
why I really appreciate what you are doing for all the caregivers out there. Um, Also, another very important aspect of caregiving is, uh, setting boundaries. First of all, understanding how to set those boundaries and then communicating effectively that, yes, these are actually, yeah, this is my time. And yeah, I really wish to spend it, for my own well being. So, what are some practical tips, Lynette, for establishing and maintaining consistently those boundaries?
I think first you have to start with recognizing that in order for you to take care of yourself, you have to be able to free up time, right?
True.
And we have a hard time saying no, especially women. I really think that women have an even harder time setting boundaries and saying no because of the way that we were brought up, right?
Absolutely.
We're the mom, we take care of the kids, we're expected to do everything. And so until you learn that you have to be able to say no to things that, you know, don't serve you anymore, or things that when you're constantly adding to your plate, you're going to be depleted and you can't fill yourself back up until you learn how to say no to some things and learn how to take care of yourself. And so, one of the things that I'll have my clients do is, when somebody asks you to do something, just take a moment and think, okay, do I really have the time to do this? Um, is this something that I want to do, or am I doing it because I don't want to say no? And then learning how to say no in a compassionate way too also helps. If you could learn how to reframe some of the ways that you are saying no, it's easier then for you to go ahead and set that boundaries. So, like for instance, if somebody were to say to me, we have an activity at church and we really want you to volunteer. So can I put you on the list? Okay. So I need to, think to myself, do I really have the time to put in to this activity and everything that's going to be required of me? And if I don't, I need to say no. So one way to say no would be, I really appreciate that you thought of me and you want me to participate in this, but right now I just really can't at this time, but keep me in mind and ask me
Mhm.
again. So you're saying no, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your time, but you're doing it in a way that isn't offensive and you don't feel bad about saying no, right?
That guilt feeling doesn't come.
Yeah. And
I,
that I think that is the biggest thing that my clients struggle with is actually, and the other thing that plays into it too is how do you feel about yourself, your self-worth? Do you really believe that you are worthy of taking that time for yourself? And what is your belief around that? You know, if you are taking time for yourself, is there a tape playing in your head that's saying, no, you shouldn't do that. That's selfish. You'd be amazed at how many negative thoughts that play through our mind throughout the day that we're not even aware of. And until we become aware of those things, we can't really change how we move through life.
right, right. Uh, I'll share. some instances from my own uh, you know, life, so uh, I'm having a bit of cold, and right now
Mhm.
I'm, spending some time with my parents, especially my mom. So even if she's tired, just on her own, she like forget everything and try to make sure that I get everything without even asking. So I always try to make her understand, mom, just take rest. If you wish to do it, if your health, if your body allows it, then only do it, or else I'm capable of doing it. Just don't
Mhm.
uh, burn out yourself while taking care of me, because then I'll have that guilt. And then,
Yeah.
he says no, then she's having that guilt, and then I have to again make her. No,
Yeah.
it's your health, it's your body, it's your mind, it's your mental health. You have to take care of yourself, and you know,
Mm.
I actually totally I try to help her. So it's a very, very thought provoking, very profound situation to handle, and I think having that support system, a community, a sense of community, belonging, connection has to be there. And with this, my next question comes for you, Lynette, is isolation is a common struggle for caregivers, and
Yeah.
somewhere down the line, there's that guilt feeling which comes from saying no. It kind of tends or creates that misconception that yes, I keep on saying no to people just because of my own needs. That's selfish. So let me just distance myself from others. So, how do you help create that sense of community and connection for those who feel alone in their journey?
Well, my program has a couple different options. We have, multiple groups that they can participate in. And I think what happens with caregivers and how they end up being so isolated is that in the beginning, they're overwhelmed with all the duties and all the tasks that they have to take on as a caregiver. And so they don't feel like they can, do the things that they used to do. So, a friend, friends and things like that might call and say, can you go to lunch or can you do this? And the first reaction is to say no because we're not sure what's going to happen, right? Are we
Right.
actually going to be able to do it? And so that's kind of how the isolation starts. And then I think that people, they're not really quite sure what we do need as far as support. And so a lot of times they take a step back thinking that we'll ask for help if we need it. Um, and we're not good at asking for help. That's a whole nother area that we all need to work on, right? We need to learn that it's okay to ask for help, but then, we don't ask for help. And so, you know, the isolation becomes worse because now they're thinking, well, they don't want to bother us, or every time they do ask, we have to say no. And so it becomes this vicious cycle. And, then we don't, and as it keeps going, then we don't feel good about ourselves. And so then we isolate even more and we withdraw. And there's several things that play into that. But what I try to get them to do is, one thing you can do is think about who were you before this started?
Right.
Who were you before you became a caregiver? And what things did you used to enjoy? What things gave you energy? What things lit you up? Who are the people that you used to talk to that you miss? And start doing little things like that, maybe just one a day. Like, if there's a friend that you haven't talked to in a long time, take 5 minutes for yourself and give them a call. Reach out, start doing some things again that, make you feel good. And I think once we start to feel a little bit better about us, it's it's easier for us then to start making connections and not, isolate so much. And I think there is a lot of power in having a tribe or people around you that understand your situation and what you're going through. And that's one of the things that, I really push is with my clients is, come to the groups, join those Zoom groups, because you're around people who understand, and you're around people who understand your situation, and there's no judgment, and they're going to support you. And
Yep.
um that's just is to feel.
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree. Also, your work is rooted in helping caregivers find purpose beyond their caregiving role. So, what
Mhm.
advice do you have for listeners who are ready to rediscover their identity?
Um, Kind of the same exercise that I just talked about.
Mm.
Try to remember who you were before this happened. You know, um, who were you and what got you excited? What things did you used to do? I think a lot of times we get so wrapped up, there's an identity fusion that happens when you are a caregiver, because your focus is just on the person that you're caring for. And going back and remembering things about yourself, what things did you do well? What did you enjoy? Um, just remembering things like that and start writing them down. What do you dream about? What would you like to see in your life? And, your reality has changed, right? But you can still have some of those things in this new reality. And it's just learning how to adapt them and learning how to instill all of those things into your life again. But, the first step is just remembering, what did you like to do? What did, how do you want to feel? And what things can help you feel that way again?
Right, right. Great, Lynette. This was such a heartfelt, emotional conversation for me as well. Uh, and before we wrap up, I would like to ask you a little bit of on the flip side question. There are critics who say that focusing too much on caregiver well-being could shift attention away from the person in the need of care. So how do you strike the right balance, Lynette?
Okay, well, that's kind of a hot topic for me, because you cannot continue to take care of the person that you love if you're not taking care of yourself. It is only a matter of time before you crash and burn. You can't burn the candle at both ends, because, you know, if you look at it this way, if you look at the fact that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't continue to take care of the person you're caring for. You kind of start to think about self care different, don't you?
Right.
You know, y- it's kind of it is a catch 22. But if you only focus on the person you're caring for and you let yourself go, eventually you're going to end up physically sick, exhausted, start to have symptoms of depression, anxiety, to the point where a lot of the women that I have worked with in the past got to the point where they didn't even want to get out of bed. And then what? Then who's going to take care of the person that is supposed to be cared for? So, if you can learn to look at it that way, taking care of yourself doesn't really seem so selfish anymore.
True. I agree. Lovely, Lynette. So if our listeners they wish to connect with you and explore more about the work you are doing out there for caregivers, how they can do that.
You can find me on Facebook under Coaching with Lynette. If you follow me, I'll put you in the group. You can find me at livingtruecoaching.com. Um, and I'm also on Instagram and TikTok under Lynette Weldon.
Great. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes for our listeners to connect with you, Lynette, easily. And thank you for this unforgettable conversation. Uh, you know, such a heartfelt, such a generous conversation. Thank you so much, Lynette.
Oh, thank you. I love talking with you.
So, listeners, if you are a caregiver or know someone who is, let this conversation serve as a gentle reminder that you are worthy of the same love and care you so generously give to others. And the same goes for the person who is a caregiver. You know, so you can create balance, purpose, and joy in your life. And guilt and grief, although they are valid emotions, but they don't define you. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into Mind Over Matter. Don't forget to connect with Lynette. You can refer the show notes along with this episode. And also, just subscribe to us, leave us a review, let us know how we are doing, and share this episode with someone who truly needs to hear it. Until next time, take a deep breath, give yourself grace, gratitude, and keep living mindfully. Thank you.